More Greek philosophical words at the core of Christianity. I have already spoken about epousios, being upon, in my videos on the Lord's Prayer, and arche, principle, in the beginning was the Word. I will talk more briefly about 10 other key words that have shaped Christian thought, which can be more fully understood if one looks at their usage in earlier Greek philosophy. I do so not to convince you that my understanding is the only correct one, but in the hope that the listeners will realize that there has been much more going on behind the scenes in terms of translation, which necessarily affects how Christianity is understood or not understood, as the case may be. This may or may not change how you view the texts in which such words appear. At the least, I hope that you may be inspired to do your own further exploration. The first word is way, Greek hodos, meaning way, road, journey, path. It appears prominently in John 14, verse 6. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. In Platonism, hodos is a path of ascent and return to the one, God. To ascend it, you must purify the soul of material attachments. This is similar to cutting ties in the Lord's Prayer and to mortify the flesh of St. Paul. Hodos as way is a structured method on how to go back to God. Method comes from the word meta, meaning after, and hodos, road. Plato's Symposium wrote about the ladder of love, and he said, the desire and pursuit of the whole is called love, and God is love. The ascent from the particular to the universal, from loving a particular person to loving God. Hodos the way is a search for complete wholeness. Plato's dialogues and inquiries to his students was a way or path to truth. In the Old Testament, the 28th chapter of Genesis, Jacob dreamed of a ladder of angels ascending and descending. In John 1, verse 51, echoed this. Saint Climacus wrote The Ladder of Divine Ascent, in which monks gradually cast off all material ties, debts in the Lord's Prayer. Christ as the way is more than just another word or descriptor, but indicates a path, a method of ascent toward Him. The second word is truth, Greek aletheia, from not, plus lethe, forgetfulness, hidden, literally not being hidden. Truth is here now, but must be uncovered by us. Truth is uncovered through inquiries, as Plato did with his students. What keeps us from reaching truth, from rising up the ladder, hodos, are those debts, ties we ask God to cut as we cut our own also. Real philosophical inquiries are meant to cut through our mental conditioning, attachments, and ways of learned perception and interpretation, or opinions per Plato, in order to see things as they really are. The next word is rising up. Although it is not found in John 14:6, it is found in many places in the New Testament. In the Old Testament. In the New Testament, the Greek word is histemi, to stand or cause to stand, and it is used 155 times. Histemi is also a Greek word with deep philosophical ties and is similar to ousia, true being or essence. In Plato's Timaeus, eternal being alone stands still, in contrast to things in time which we experience with our senses. Although in the New Testament, histemi is most often used for physical standing, in many places it reveals its deeper meaning. In Colossians 4:12, that ye may stand perfect and complete in the will of God. Ephesians 6:14, stand therefore, having your loins girt about with truth. 2 Colossians 1, verse 24, for by faith ye stand. Romans 14:4, yea, he shall be holden up, for God is able to make him stand. Christ was raised up on the cross. To be raised up, to stand, is possible only if there is a solid foundation supporting you, and God is the ultimate foundation or rock on which to stand. Histemi ties in with hypostasis, which I will talk about later. We will know the real, Christ as truth, as we rise up with and toward him, as given in the Lord's Prayer. The next key word in John 14:6 is life. The way leads to truth, which leads to real life, when we live in God and God lives in us. We are raised up with Christ when we ourselves are crucified on his cross with him, resting on God alone. Galatians 2, verse 20, I am crucified with Christ. This is not a metaphor and must be known spiritually. This is the full philosophical meaning and implications of histemi. John 14:6 ends with the words, but by me. Who did Christ refer to as me? This key verse is often used to promote the idea that Christianity is the only way to heaven, to be with God the Father. Although within the 10,000 plus churches of Christianity, there is often dispute over which form and dogma is the correct or right one, many claiming that salvation is possible only within their interpretation. I remember, brought up as a Methodist, we thought that Catholics went to hell, and Catholics thought that all Protestants went to hell. Times do change, however, and today there is more ecumenical spirit among Christians, and even among non-Christian religions. And who does Christ refer to as me? The way, the truth, and the life. He says, I am. Just as in John 1, verse 1, he says he is the Word, Logos, and the principle, Creator, repeated in John 8:25. He further says that he is the light of the world and the bread of life. He did not say, I am Jesus Christ. You must say these words and believe in them, even though it should be Yeshua and not Jesus. Just as God has a name that cannot be pronounced with material tongues, so too Christ, who partakes of his nature and is one with him, has a name that cannot be pronounced. We can say that he is the only begotten Son of God, the Logos, the principle, etc., to try to understand him. Words and beliefs are not enough, however, as Christ said that only those who do the will of the Father enter heaven. Matthew 7, verse 21. And Christ, as the Hodos, the way, demonstrated the way through his life of surrender, cutting off all ties, debts, asking even, who is my mother? Even cutting off ties with his body on the Christ. This is but by me. And where is his kingdom? Not up in the sky, but within. Luke 17, verse 21. The next word that I want to talk about in Greek is the word passion, the Greek pasko, to suffer, endure, to experience a sensation, either negatively or positively, to suffer or endure it passively without attachment. Acts 1, verse 3, to whom he also showed himself alive after his passion. This is the passion of Christ. Latin is passio. The modern English is passion. Confusion has arisen in English because passion and passionate are interpreted as extreme or intense, as for example, he loved her passionately. But the passion of Christ is not about his external torments, terrible as they were. The emphasis of passio is on Christ's willingness, the acceptance and surrender of the will, body, self to suffer, and not the actual physical suffering he underwent. We see with our eyes in the valley of vision and not with the heart in faith, and so we focus on the externals that happened to Christ, his crown of thorns, etc., and not on his surrendering, passio. Christ died on the cross to show his surrender, his obedience to the will of the Father, Hebrews 5, verse 8. Christ's passio began long before his torture and death on the cross. As revealed in Matthew chapter 26, he could have asked his Father, who would give him more than 12 legions of angels to prevent his death. Instead, he surrendered passio to the will of the Father. Passio is to surrender, endure, not tied to the body, but to faith, that is real being, substance, parousia, which leads me to the next Greek word, parousia. Para, beside, near, plus ousia, being essence, translated as presence and sometimes as arrival. But it fundamentally means presence, which may encompass arrival. Its opposite means absence. It is a noun, not a verb or action of coming. It is found 24 times in the New Testament. Beginning, for example, with Matthew 24, verse 3, "And what shall be the sign of thy coming?" Note how it seems to be an action verb here.